we're doing really well for time, so thank you all for being so helpful and sticking to the time limit. We appreciate that. Question number 3. Greening urban areas is one of the major tools available to local governments to cool their cities and promote high standards of livability. As Mayor, would you support developing a comprehensive greening Townsville strategy during your term? How would you ensure such a strategy is adequately resourced and implemented across all suburbs, including those most vulnerable to heat? Some elements that could form part of such a strategy, and we've heard a bit from some of the candidates on these elements, but some elements that could form part of a strategy include undertaking a 330-300 audit, so a global urban forestry benchmark where everyone should see three trees from their home, 30% canopy, 300 metres from a park, as we heard. Identify priority areas where urban cooling is most urgent. Increasing canopy cover to internationally recognised minimum of 30% over 10 years. Collaborate with traditional owners to combine traditional ecological knowledge with Western science to enhance knowledge and decisions to support biodiversity in Townsville's natural areas. And further develop the list of priority species that have a broad resilience to a range of environmental extremes that can be expected in a changing climate. So that was a lot. So just to recap the main parts of the question, greening urban areas is very important. What is your strategy if you were to be elected mayor, and how would you ensure that that could be resourced and implemented? So if you've already touched on elements of those, perhaps you'd like to dig a little bit deeper into the parts of that question. Candidate Thompson.
I'll reiterate, I guess, that I fully support a comprehensive greening Townsville strategy. We'll begin with an urban canopy audit using a 330-300 model, prioritising suburbs most affected by heat. Funding will be redirected from sponsorships. I think that's a must. We have to fund this properly. Into shade trees, urban cooling, and nature corridors. As well as that, I'd like to see a lot more urban gardens within the city and also rooftop gardening. It's about fixing what we have, obviously not adding to the debt. You talked and touched on the Indigenous cultures. I think we have to, and the one thing that I saw sitting in the chamber quite often, you look out and we don't have representation as far as traditional owners or elders go. We had a liaison officer, but that was moved on. So I think it's important to use the education that's there, the many years and hundreds of years of education that they can bring to the table, and actually appoint a traditional owner in our directorate with Townsville City Council, so we get some learnings and some culture as well as the natural, how they deal with natural habitats. Part of that is also to ensure that community consultative charter includes people like the NQCCs to be more involved in how we go about doing this. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. We should bring the Indigenous people in this inclusive community to see how we can make better use of the greening. But what we really need is water. We haven't got a second pipeline, yeah? So how are you going to green anything if you haven't got enough water? I feel that we need water, and also trees that are good. I mean, it's hard to plant anything that is not suitable for a town. I mean, like gum trees and that. But we need to plant trees that are suitable for different areas, and that's I agree to to any strategies that North Queensland Community Conservation Council says. So we should be able to take some advice from them, and also the university has got a lot of research on all this climate change and greening. James Cook University, we've got the biggest university here. We should be taking advice from them. What about AIM, Australian Institute of Marine Science, and the Barrier Reef, and all those areas? So I think greening is a good thing, and we should be collaborating with traditional owners, and that's why I'm very green today. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, as Mayor, I would definitely support a greening strategy. If you do jump onto our website, we do have some things, particularly around our laboratory services, which does some soil testing, creek to coral, our sustainable destinations, our wastewater, invasive plants, environmental nuisances, and our tree management policy. I think one of the biggest things that I've seen change is in the major amendment to the planning scheme. And what council has put forward is all these developers come and don't realise that we live in the dry tropics. So when they present to council all these wonderful developments with these greening ideas, they may look pretty for the first 6 months, and then they're handed over to council, and unfortunately we don't have the resources to keep those sort of plants alive. So it's working with developers to say, hey, if you are going to do a development, you need to work with us to make sure that the plants and the development that you are doing is firstly A, suitable to our climate, and B, you need to use water-wise plants around your development. And I think that we need to be smarter and more sustainable as a council in what we allow developers to do in that regard. So yes, absolutely support a greening strategy. We do have things in place. As I said, we're now an ecotourism destination, and that's taken a lot of work. And I commend Greg Bruce for doing that work over the last 8 years. But there are, absolutely as a council, we need, it is a way of the future, and we need to work with developers and with everyone here in Townsville to make sure that the plants that we use are water-wise and are suitable to our climate.
Yes, my plan would be, the two most important things are definitely the trees. The second most important thing is the recycled water, and council putting more recycle facilities in the sewerage works to get that water, and mulching, because I'm the spokesperson for an organisation called LawMac representing the council, which is dealing now with our green waste and our food waste and all these sort of things. But the green waste, once it's mulched, can go on all of those trees, and that's the major benefit. See, the water that we've currently got, 220 megalitres we can produce per day from our Douglas treatment works, is not enough to green Townsville. So we need other strategies in Townsville to green and grow these trees. These trees can sit out in the open now without the mulching and no water, and you know what they look like at this time of year. But the plan is to try and get more recycled water. We currently do the stadium, we currently do the golf course, we currently give a bit to the army base. Mine is to get much more throughout Townsville to try and green that Townsville. You do need, as Harry said, you need the water for that greening of Townsville. So that's what I'll try and do when I'm the Mayor of Townsville.
Greening Townsville. So I've always seen the mayoral position as primarily a facilitator of community-based organisations, state, federal governments. And tonight we've spoken a lot about our First Nations people. And that takes a long time to build the trust. When I was 13 years old and the Stanleys and the Smallwoods and Randall Ross was hanging out at my house, and I'd hang out at theirs as a Pimlico High School kid. When we were at my house, my mother would have us sitting at the table doing our homework. And when I went to Auntie Angiaki's house, she'd tell us to get outside and climb the trees. I can tell you where indeed we wanted to hang out. What I'm saying, folks, is to work with our First Nations people takes trust. For 30 years, I've been working with the First Nations people, the 12 primary tribes. I was employed by the federal government to conduct the National Indigenous Land and Sea Management Conference in Cardwell. And I learned a great deal at that conference. And if we want to look at a lot of the issues that exist in our city, you need someone who can actually be trusted and work with First Nations and listen to them. Not just tokenistically sit with them, but actually listen and enact what they want. Tree register. When I was running through Anderson Park in 21, I'll tell you, it honestly brought tears to my eyes to see 2 huge fig trees chopped to the ground. We're talking circumference like this. And working with the NQCC and Bernadette Biscacci and Crystal, I did a little post first and I had like 300 people respond, also upset. It led to a media conference that occurred and then a Freedom of Information Act. Guess what? Heritage listed. So that won't be happening. We need a tree register, and it's also for footpaths and community gardens and lots more.
And more time.
Well, I agree with all that again. So it's easy for me at the end. Look, there's some great ideas and council have got a very good strategy already in place. So a couple of things I want to pick up on. There needs to be more scrutiny and collaboration with developers and give them something that they can use as an example. And I go back to the potential of using that land at Agonvale, our First Nations people, set up an environment there that developers can go and look at and say, that's what we want you to do in your development. Take the ideas out of that and use that expertise that we have at our doorstep and get them better engaged. So when I got this initially, the 3 words I wrote in the beginning was engagement, engagement, engagement. And that is the key. So someone else brought up Indigenous representation on council. I would love to see an Indigenous representative as a councillor. That would be something that I would push for at the next opportunity if should I be mayor. And also having someone in there in council having a specialised department that is an Indigenous liaison, providing Indigenous connections and also Indigenous knowledge and expertise. Water is the key. We need to get that water assurity, but we have an opportunity to position Townsville as an example for the rest of tropical Australia and how to do it properly.
Thank you very much.